Now, Essene Judaism and Qumranite Judaism. So this is this group right here that we started talking about. We're just going to keep going down this chart and try to get as far as we can today. The Essene Judaism and Qumranite Judaism. When we say Qumran, we're talking about a geographical area. Qumran is a place. It is a location on the Dead Sea, which you could see the Jordan River right there flowing into the Dead Sea. This is the lowest place on earth, Dead Sea. Today Jordan would be on one side and Israel on the other side, but back in the biblical days, that was all Israelite territory all over. And so essentially the Qumran is this area where the scientists have found some really amazing discoveries. In the 40s, some Bedouin found some jars with scrolls in that area, and then they went out and they sold those scrolls, not even realizing how much they were worth. And eventually, the scrolls made it to the scholars, and the scholars realized that these scrolls are really amazing. They've never seen anything like this before. And to make the long story a little bit shorter, they found out where these scrolls were found, and they started looking around. And not only they found many more scrolls in that area, which are known today as the Dead Sea Scrolls, but they also found a whole settlement, which you see right here on the screen before you. And so this is a sort of say an archaeological reconstruction of a settlement, which the people who wrote the scrolls and preserved the scrolls most likely have built. And so we have remnants of this. They found those caves of the scrolls, then they found the ruins nearby. They started excavating and found this large compound. And so what the best that we can tell is there was a group of people that we can call today the Qumranites or the Qumran Jews who lived in that area. And these people were secluded. They were from priestly background, and they lived in this dry, desertous area that is very difficult to live in. Yet they trapped water in the wintertime, and they channeled it into their community. And they had these pools and reservoirs of water, and they made it a way to live there in seclusion and isolation from the rest of Israelite society. So kind of by choice, and that was their way. And you could see right here the picture of this settlement by the Wadi, by this dry riverbed. And so these are the people who gave us the Dead Sea Scrolls, all those scroll fragments that were found in the 40s and the 50s and 60s were essentially came as a result of the labor of this community. So the inhabitants of Qumran were actually not mentioned in the New Testament. However, many believe that there are indirect references to their religious views in the Gospels. Those who lived in Qumran can be called Qumran Jews or Qumranites, but the broader movement to which they may have belonged is typically called the Essenes by scholars. That is what we mean. So that's why when we say Essenes and Qumranites, we are talking about the same things, but then not entirely, because the Essenes lived in settlements across Israel and possibly even outside of Israel. And it appears that they had an agreed upon core beliefs that were also diverse, even within themselves. So the Essenes live in the cities, and Qumran Jews live in Qumran, and they may have even diversity between themselves, but of course some sort of a common core that they agreed upon. We're still studying this community, and there's still a lot of discoveries being made about them. So Qumran Jews, whom scholars assume copied and authored many of the documents found in these Qumran caves, were led by Zadokite priests. And now these priests left Jerusalem and the temple because in their view of what they saw, the leadership was corrupt and compromised in many areas, including the very arrangement of Israelite calendar and the sacred days. So they couldn't take it anymore. They chose to seclude themselves and to live in Qumran in the desert, worshiping God in strict purity, entirely away from the corruption of the world. So these priests protested and basically decided to leave the system. leave it and let them be. They couldn't change it. They decided to leave. These are Qumranites. Now, Qumranites and Essenes saw themselves standing opposite of both the ruling priestly class, who condoned the calendar changes, and the Pharisees, who brokered deals with occupying Romans. And both groups, in their view, brought corruption and Hellenization of Jerusalem, and this is something that the Qumranites really disliked. And so the Essenes and the Qumranites practiced a most conservative adherence to the commandments. They believed that other Jews compromised too much in their interpretations of Torah. So that was their solution. Leave the whole system and just do what they know is right to do by themselves. Now, the community was interesting in that they stressed purity rituals, and they lived communally to eradicate poverty. This was their way. They did not have private property, and all of their resources were owned and shared by the group. Essentially, joining the group meant taking whatever resources you have and making them a common property. Everyone's needs were supplied from the communal means, so whenever somebody needed something, you could go to the overseer, and the overseer will make a decision, and your needs will be taken care of. Essenes farmed the land and depended heavily on agriculture and provision for their daily needs. Their life appeared austere, or at times almost ascetic. They were known for their benevolence work among the poor and for sharing their resources even with outsiders who needed help. So they seemed to be very generous people and very genuine people, even wanting to share, the whatever means they had with those who had nothing. So that's what they were known for. It seems that many Essenes chose not to marry and avoided started families for fear of what was to come. They had a very eschatological, or we can say end-time focused outlook on life. They often spoke of the end of days, about God's wars, about destruction, of coming judgment, and this partially explains their lifestyle, the reason why they lived the way they lived, because they believed they were living in the end days. So they appeared to be nonviolent, and they did not outwardly support the revolutionary efforts of the Zealots. Instead, they waited on God's judgment of the wicked. So they just waited around until God will come and judge the whole world, because they are all steeped in sin. And so that's the idea. So if you take this type of an outlook on life, then perhaps you would understand why somebody would not want to start a family. If you truly believe that the end of the world is coming tomorrow, then getting married all of a sudden becomes very low priority. And why would you want to bring children into that kind of a world that's about to end? That's just increasing more suffering. So perhaps we can understand some of their choices of not forming traditional marriages and living that lifestyle, but remaining single.
Shalom, I'm here to invite you to come with us on a journey of discovery into the Jewish context and culture that will forever change the way you read and interpret the Bible. As you slowly go through our self-paced, on-demand program in Jewish studies relevant for Christians, you will gain ability to discover the original meaning of the biblical texts. You will see the nuance hidden behind our best and faithful translations, and to interpret these ancient texts in their original meaning. At Israel Bible Center, we provide you with the state-of-the-art, simple-to-use technology. This way, you can study on your own from the comfort of your own home, even towards your certificate in the Jewish context and culture. This study will strengthen your ministry as you continue to serve God. We will guide you through our large collection of crash courses by our fascinating faculty and roundtable talks with leading world scholars. Our weekly Israel Bible magazine, as well as Israel Bible podcast that focuses on the land of Israel, will assist us along the way. We believe that the Bible does not need to be rewritten, but it needs to be carefully reread.
Click the link and register today to our wide variety of biblical courses.